Well, let's talk to Robert Bates, Research Director at the Centre for Migration Control. Robert, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Not at all. Good to see you. This is another story that I wasn't necessarily going to talk to you about, but we might as well do it. Who knows how much of this is going on, and I don't know how it would be terribly easy to measure, because you'd probably have to go to each individual council to say to them, you know, how many people are you taking to schools, and which places, which nationalities are they? You know, are they asylum seekers? You know, there could be all of that going on.
Yeah, it's something that was brought to my attention last week, actually, and we're looking to put in some FOIs on it. We've had one instance raised with us where it looks like an individual might actually be being paid to take his own kid to school in the back of a taxi. So that's something we're looking to... You know, it's an absolutely ridiculous situation across the country. Millions is being wasted on this scheme. So, yeah we're looking at.
It is extraordinary, isn't it? But I mean, you know, we can talk about all manner of stories this morning. The Mail's got one which says Starmer's going to be humiliated because his new idea of doing the one-in, one-out nonsense, which was nonsense anyway, is going to be scuppered by the European Union. But the Sun also today with a big spread basically saying it's now such a free-for-all in France that, you know, there's so many people coming that they can't actually keep up with the numbers.
Yeah, and this is exactly what you and I and people like us on our side of the argument have been trying to point out to Keir Starmer, is that the problem isn't actually the people smugglers. The problem is the sheer demand that is emerging across Europe to come to the UK. We are the land of milk and honey. We are seen as such a soft touch. And you see other stories that have come out in recent days, such as us extending legal aid to those that are claiming asylum, making it easier for them to bung up the system and to try and resist any deportation that's imposed upon them. This is a system that is not like anything in Europe. It's a system that has effectively been hijacked by left-wing activists to make life as easy as possible for illegal migrants. And the beneficiaries of that are those that are running the smuggling gangs. And it's something that I really can't see how Keir Starmer can continue with these ridiculous schemes of one in, one out that he's raising, this idea of smashing the gangs, which has resulted in absolutely nothing, because the British public have had an absolute enough of this. You know, the numbers that have arrived this year alone are 50% up on where they were last year. We're looking like we're going to hit 50,000 this year. £6.4 billion every single year now going on this absolutely ridiculous situation. Starmer needs to realise that he has to about turn again on this one and actually put in place a deterrent.
Yeah, I mean, these numbers here just from last week, nearly 4 times as many small boat migrants have made it to Britain in 1 week than the French managed to stop. A total of 703 crossed the Channel in the 7 days to June the 29th, while the French cops stopped just 191. And this is as we get the sort of the migrant tracker that we've got, getting us up to not far off 45,000. But of course, I was just mentioning there that we had a call to the show on Friday from a long-distance lorry driver up in Cambridge somewhere, who said he'd just seen 4 guys jump out the back of a lorry in front of him when he pulled into a service stop. So that's still going on as well.
And that's absolutely right. And it's especially interesting to watch what's happened to those Albanians that are looking to come into the country illegally. Of course, the Tories signed a deal with Albania to return Albanian nationals caught on the small boats. But you actually see an increase now in them appearing in the back of lorries and those kind of, as you were, more old-fashioned routes through which to arrive into the country illegally. Of course, it's important to recognise that this isn't a crisis that's purely on the Channel. We also have a huge crisis with people overstaying visas and simply disappearing into the country as well. There was a piece a couple of days ago that, you know, we are probably seeing every year thousands, tens of thousands of individuals arriving on tourist study work visas and then just not leaving at the end of their allocated period.
Yeah, just disappearing into the sort of the undergrowth, as it were, which is what an awful lot of people do. And then just to show how mad the government's view on all of this is, it turns out that Yvette Cooper is going to change the law to make it illegal to glorify channel crossing. So apparently if you make a film of the channel crossing that you're making, or if you put out any kind of, you know, social media activity around the practice of smuggling yourself into Britain, that's illegal, but actually arriving here illegally isn't illegal.
It's ridiculous. Again, I don't know how these things actually are enforced. I don't know what the plan is. You know, if they were able to get one individual under this proposed law, they would make such a song and dance about it and act like they put the whole edifice to a collapse. It's another gimmick that, frankly, we've had enough of now at this point. There was another one, of course, where they were looking to clamp down on Facebook pages and TikTok videos. They've not done that either. So it's effectively a system that they don't know what they're doing, and they're trying to put out these little sound bites.
Exactly right. And meanwhile, we've got Emmanuel Macron turning up this week for a state visit, which will no doubt have some form of conversation about the illegal crossings. But, you know, the French don't want to stop them. We can't make them.
No, I've always been saying on this that there is no point trying to pin all our hopes on France sorting this out for us. They have no interest in doing so. And the one in, one out scheme that was proposed with France, it now looks like it is going to fall a cropper, because you've got those countries in Europe that are on the borders of Europe, where the migrant crisis is most acute in Europe, kicking up a fuss, saying it will cause them more damage. Now, it remains to be seen whether this is just a negotiating ploy to actually get our politicians and civil servants dragged into a whole Europe-wide asylum scheme, which is my very real concern. That I think when we start talking with Europe, we know how our politicians get outfoxed by them. We saw that during Brexit. And the risk is that we end up taking far more from Europe than we actually end up returning to them in the first place. We need to be very careful when we think that France are the silver bullet here. Yeah,
exactly right. Because, again, you know, we are the end point of where people come to, because they get to the point where, having gone through Europe and there are various different countries there, they realise that the best place for them is Britain, because this is where they get the best treated.
Well, exactly, and of course you see time and again those individuals that have jumped through several countries and tried asylum in several countries. We are the last resort, but the way we deter those individuals from even attempting it is through a third country deportation scheme, or reasserting our ability to remove those individuals to their country of origin, which we don't have anywhere near enough removal agreements with those countries of origin. In Afghanistan, for instance, we have no means to actually legal means to actually return individuals. That's why we see grant rates for Afghanis so high when they come into the country illegally. And then we need to get back to a system like Rwanda, where someone has thrown their documents overseas, over the side of the boat, which they seem to be very fond of doing. Then we can return them to another country and process their asylum applications way away from the British mainland.
Right, well, that would be ideal. But of course, you know, the Labour government now are looking for a sort of Rwanda replacement scheme, aren't they? And they're looking at all sorts of other countries as third countries to process people, as if they might as well have just kept Rwanda as an idea.
Yeah, my understanding of what Labour are looking at, though, is it's a sort of processing centre, and then if an individual is successful, they would have they would be able to claim asylum in the UK. The difference with the Rwanda scheme was it basically recognised that if you've come into the country illegally, you have no right ever to have asylum in the UK. I think that's a very important principle that needs to be put back at the heart of our asylum system, because at the moment it's being completely taken advantage of. It's not in any way fit for purpose. It's not how it was probably imagined in the aftermath of the Second World War. It would be a humane asylum system would operate. It's effectively a means through which economic migrants are able to come into Britain and make a comfortable life for themselves at the British taxpayers' expense.
Yeah, exactly right. Robert, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Robert Bates there, Research Director of the Centre for Migration Control.